Six planets, a solar eclipse, a major earthquake, and a meteor shower in the same window of time? Is this Luke 21 being fulfilled? What is occurring when the earth starts shaking and the heavens are demanding our attention? Well, on Monday, we witnessed a powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake that struck Western Colombia. And our hearts go out to that nation and the devastation. We know families are affected, families are grieving. So we send our prayers asking God to send comfort. But we also need to pay attention to what's happening. And this is not fear mongering, this is discernment. Because within days after this devastating earthquake, the heavens presented an extraordinary convergence. We had six planets appearing across the morning sky. We had a total solar eclipse. There was also a new moon, and the peak of the Perseid meteor shower was visible. Now, you can say that these events can be explained naturally, and you may be right. But when they converge in the same narrow window of time, I believe we as students of prophecy and just believers in general need to ask at least a question. Did these things happen and occur according to what Jesus told us to watch for in terms of the signs of his coming? Because when we look at Luke chapter 21, verse 11, Jesus said, "And great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven." Listen, the earth is shaking, and the heavens are speaking. And today on Rapture Insights, I want to show you why this convergence deserves our attention. But first, let me welcome you back to the channel. I'm your host, Pastor Marcus Brantley, and I'm glad you're tuning in with us to Rapture Insights, which is your premier and trusted channel for everything pertaining to the rapture and also eschatology, which is the study of the last things or the last days. So let's get into it. We're talking about earthquakes. We're talking about six planets in alignment, the Perseid meteor shower, the new moon, and the total solar eclipse. But first, let's look at the earth shaking. Let's begin on the ground. So on this past Monday, just a few days ago, there was a 7.4, let me say that again, 7.4 magnitude earthquake that struck Colombia. And it caused, as it was reported, widespread destruction. And it was felt across a significant portion of the region. Now, let's be careful here. Jesus did not say that every earthquake is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. We know that earthquakes occur and have occurred over time throughout the history of mankind. But what's different here is that Jesus specifically told his disciples, not just in Luke, but also in Matthew 24, which is really the same Olivet discourse. He said that there will be great earthquakes in various places or diverse places. And we would characterize this within the prophetic landscape because this is a great earthquake. It's a major earthquake. And we shouldn't panic, but we should be aware, right? We should not be asleep because Jesus told us to watch as well as to pray. Now, be it as it may, there was something that shook under our feet, and that was the earth. But then after the earth shook, a couple of days later, the heavens began to speak. And there were six planets that were in alignment across the heavens. Now, before sunrise, I believe around yesterday, August 12th, uh, these 6 planets appeared in the sky. Now, we know these planets are in our solar system, but from our vantage point, it was an unusual visual alignment. Now, we had Jupiter that appeared, Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune. Now, they weren't just sitting up there in one straight line in space, but there was nevertheless a planetary alignment that was unusual from our Earth vantage point. And it was stretching broadly, as in astronomy, you would say, along the ecliptic. Now, although Uranus and Neptune required optical assistance to see it, you couldn't see it just with your natural eyes. It was nevertheless pretty miraculous that here God moved 6 planets out of their usual view into our vision. All right, we have to keep that in mind. So, no, the heavens, they're behaving according to the order that God established for them. But scripture tells us something more important about their order, because they're put in the heavens for a reason, not just for signs, not just for times and for seasons, as is mentioned in Genesis 1, but it also does what? According to Psalms 19. And that is, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Yes, the heavens are declaring something about our great God. And what is that? He is getting our attention. He's letting us know that these unusual events is for us to look and take heed, because he doesn't want us to miss the rapture. We all desire to be raptured, to be caught up, to meet the Lord in the air. So let's get to the next converging event, and that is the total eclipse. The sun went dark, and that happened yesterday as well. I believe you were able to see it best in Iceland, Greenland, even I think Russia and parts of Europe. And for other places, there was a partial eclipse, but nevertheless, there was a solar eclipse. So, for those that were standing in the path of the totality, as they would say in astronomy, the moon, of course, moved directly between the earth and the sun. And as a result, the daylight disappeared. And, that can cause confusion, they say, even to wildlife, because when it becomes dark, animals start to go in. If they're animals of the day, and if they're nocturnal animals, they begin to come out. And then all of a sudden, when the sun appears, surprise, and then they have to reverse their behavior. But nevertheless, we know that there was a total eclipse where the sun disappeared and was blocked. Now, yes, by itself, it just may be one event, but we're not just talking one event. We're speaking within this window of time, these events happening relatively all at once. So we dealt with the major earthquake, also the 6 planets in alignment. We are now talking about the solar eclipse. And just as a reminder, Jesus did say in Luke 21:25, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. Now, let's rightly divide this, because Jesus was talking about these signs during the tribulation period as well, right? That is what Joel prophesied of too, that in the latter days, the Lord will pour out his spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and daughters shall prophesy. And then later it says, the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall be turned to blood. So those are also signs of the latter days, but also in our time, because, prophecy can have a double reference. So Jesus, yes, he's speaking of these signs during the tribulation period, but he's also referring to these times before the rapture. And Jesus is directing our attention towards where? The heavens. All right. Next we have is the new moon. Now, this is not a coincidence in an astronomical sense, because in order to have a solar eclipse, you have to have a new moon. But the point is that nevertheless, this new moon occurred when there was a solar eclipse along with these other events. So again, we're talking about events in a convergence, a coming together, because when we speak about convergence, we're reminded what Jesus said about the beginning of sorrows. And in that idiom, the beginning of sorrows, the translation speaks to birth pangs. And as a woman who is giving birth gets closer to delivering, these things occur in increase in intensity and in frequency. In other words, the pangs come faster and closer in proximity. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing these events occurring in close proximity in the same window of time. That's the convergence that I'm speaking of here, and that should give us pause, that when the earth shakes and the heavens speak, we need to pay attention as believers. Let's get to our next event, and that has to do with the Perseid meteor shower. Now, again, this is an event by itself that naturally occurs, and this peaked beginning last night and then also into today, the 13th. And it will be visible to the naked eye if you're in an area that can see it. So again, we have another major event occurring in the same window of time. We have 6 planets visible across the heavens in alignment. We have a total solar eclipse. We have the new moon appearing, and we have a meteor shower that's streaking across the earth, or across the night sky, rather. And in the earth, we had a major violent shaking of a 7.4 magnitude. Now, again, Jesus said that there would be earthquakes in diverse places. But we also have here not just the earth shaking, but we also have what he said in Luke 21:11, that there will be fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. So in the same verse, it talks about earthquakes. It also talks about famines, pestilences, and it's also talking about the heavens, great signs being there. And I believe this convergence is speaking to that and is fulfilling the great signs that will be in the heavens. Now, you might ask, is Luke 21 being fulfilled? Well, I'm not saying it is being fulfilled in its totality. What I am saying is that we can't ignore these signs, because these signs, these things happening in this narrow window of time, is happening for a reason. And Jesus wants us to be ready, right? Because God isn't slack concerning his promises, as men count slackness. That's what Peter said. But God is long suffering toward us, because it's not his will that any should perish, but that every person would come into repentance. So we're seeing the earth shake. We're seeing the signs in the heavens. And yes, you might explain it away astronomically. You might say, well, these events occur all the time. And I'm not denying that, but they don't occur in a way that it is doing now, right? You can say, well, there's always been earthquakes. That's true. You might even relate to the fact that there was Noah's flood, right? God used water. He uses things naturally. There was a star that led the wise men to Bethlehem. Yes, that was a heavenly phenomenon. But that also shows that God is sovereign And he uses the natural things. He uses the things on the earth, and he uses the things in the heavens to do what? To get our attention. And I believe that's what Jesus is doing here, because he doesn't want us to miss, right, the rapture. He wants us in the ark of safety, because as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man when he shall come. So again, this is not fear mongering. This is being prayerful, watching, discerning, because Jesus is coming soon and he can come at any time, right? There's nothing else that needs to be fulfilled that would prevent Jesus from coming. And Jesus told us when we see these signs that we need to look up, right? Luke 21:28. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Jesus didn't say look down in fear. Nope. He said look up. And when we see these signs, we ought to look up, and we need to hearken and listen and take notice. He didn't give us these signs, right, to worship eclipses, worship the alignment of the planets. No, that's not, we don't deal with astrology and the age of Aquarius and Pisces. No, we worship the only true and living God who created these heavenly bodies. He created the earth. And that is who we focus our attention on. So Jesus is warning us. He's letting us know so that we are without excuse. So in closing, what do we make of this convergence? A 7.4 earthquake, 6 planets across the morning sky in alignment, a new moon, a total solar eclipse, and also the Perseid meteor shower filling a darkened sky, all in the same window of time. I'm telling you that Jesus told us to watch both the earth and the heavens when we read Luke 21, his Olivet discourse. And right now, the earth and the heavens, they both have our attention, because the earth is shaking and the heavens are speaking. And the question is, are we listening? Is the church listening? Is the church preparing for the call of the bridegroom? Are your lamps filled with oil? Don't be like the 5 foolish, be like the 5 wise. Be ready, because we'll never know when the bridegroom will call until he does. So we're going to end it right there. And if this teaching was beneficial to you, and if you haven't subscribed, why don't you hit the subscribe button? Also, if you found this episode of value, why don't you like it as well? And I will hope to see you, the Lord willing, on next week. This is Rapture Insights, your premier and trusted channel for everything pertaining to the rapture, as well as eschatology, which is the study of the last days, or the study of the last things. And I'm your host, Pastor Marcus Brantley. Hope to see you on next week. God bless. Shalom. Shalom.